social nature of all human action?
No.
Even John might not have seen that. Does that ring a bell? I remember a few years ago, it was my privilege to interview Professor Louis Bernstein, who was for many years professor of moral philosophy at Brooklyn College. He was then 83 years old, and he had completed his life's work, which is a book entitled On the Essentially Social Nature of All Human Action. Bernstein had worked on this topic, as I say, for many years, and he was kind enough to provide me, live, sitting in his own living room in a relaxed way, with the essentials of his Kornhauser lecture. The Kornhauser lecture was delivered in the Corn Belt in a house near the University of Utah in 1957. To judge by Professor Bernstein's recollection of his own lecture, it went like this.
This lecture is entitled On the Essentially Social Nature of All Human Action. And it is indeed my contention that every human action, even the most apparently individual, isolated, removed from all social interchange and contact with others, turns out, on inspection, to be deeply impregnated with what I call sociality at its very core. Let us consider, to begin with, an example of a human action which prima facie would seem to be unlikely from the point of view of our thesis. A human action which indeed would seem at first blush strongly to disconfirm it. Consider a man entirely alone, all alone, with no one else near him, sitting in his car, listening to the radio, in the middle of a huge traffic jam, immobile. What, you might ask at first blush, could more illustrate isolation, anomie, alienation, and total disconnection from other human beings? And yet, when we look more closely and reflect more deeply on the example, we can see that the very fact of his immobility reflects the environing sociality, which even in its negative fashion is shaping his being in the world. Or consider a man late at night at home, alone in his bathroom, brushing his teeth. Perhaps his wife and children are away, entirely alone, maybe even the neighbors not there. And yet, when we begin to ask, having at first sight regarded this as a paradigm of sheer, raw, individual separateness, we ask ourselves, where did the toothbrush come from? We are put in mind the truck which brought it to his house, the dependency on the factory where many hands will have gone into the making of it, the bristle from the pig which goes to make the fabric of the toothbrush. Professor Wilkins, see, I told you it was a bad idea. I don't hear any roaring, right? Do you remember the roaring on Saturday night? This is committed to posterity.
That's all right, I want to hear what the question is.
You should commit your own posterior to posterity. The question is, Professor Bernstein, I see the toothbrush case. I think it's very clever of you to draw the individualist sting of it in the way you did. But what would you say about a person who brushes his teeth alone at night with the light off, without a toothbrush, but just with a little bit of toothpaste on his finger? How would you handle that example, Professor Bernstein? Well, that is indeed a difficult example. And the strategy would suit so well in the previous case, which I call the manufacturing strategy plainly fails in this instance. And yet, when we ask ourselves why the man is making that particular motion with the toothpaste on his finger, be it Ipana, Amident, when we ask why he moves his finger back and forth, he is clearly governed by a norm of cleanliness, which he must surely have imbibed from the environment of the sociality in which he was reared.
I think that's all I've got on that one. Okay, now I'll give you the German idea of freedom.
Okay, just a minute. I need to lower the... Oh, God damn it.